What's up, everybody?
My name is Anthony Irvin.
You beat yourself?
Yeah,
Yeah, CB myself.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm Jim Green.
Don't even need a hit of traffic light.
Okay, good.
Welcome to
One set. What's up, everybody? How we doing? Welcome back to another episode of the One Set podcast. I'm Jim Green, along with my best friend, my co-host, Anthony Irvin. What's going on, brother?
Yo. What's going on, man? Another week here at the One Set podcast. Thank you all for tuning in again. It was a pretty mellow weekend. We had Valentine's Day, but we didn't really go on Valentine's Day and, being in the Friday night and everything. So we just did a little, thing with the kids. And me and Jen went out Saturday to a local restaurant, which we hadn't really had a decent, date night in a couple months. So it was good to just kind of get out and, just be without the kids for at least 2 hours. Got a drink it over at PJ's, and it was a fun night. Other than that, and then we had a little bit of crazy weather this weekend, so it was mainly after that then just kind of just going through and just chilling the rest of the weekend. But Grayson has officially started to walk, so now there is definitely no more sitting down time. You're either sitting down and waiting for him to move, or he's already on the move and you got to get up.
Yeah, you sent that video to me, and I was like, oh, he's not just taking a few steps. He's pretty much moving across the room. That's awesome.
And, he started doing some walking on that Thursday, and now he's just full blown, I want to walk everywhere. And then every once in a while, he'll just stand there and you're trying to enforce him, come on, come walk. And then he'll start. And he's still, getting his bearings all straight, getting his, balance still, but he's forcing himself to just walk everywhere. And, now you just hold his hand and he'll walk everywhere, and then you just try to let him go and then see how far he'll go. And every day he's, getting farther, getting his balance even better. So, we haven't had to worry about this since, the time when Anthony started walking. And I think Grayson actually started walking now. I think he started walking a little bit sooner than Anth, maybe a month or two earlier. So, it's now just getting back to that time of how we're dealing with Anth. Okay, now you have to, really watch him and see where he's going. But, it's all the fun things.
Do you think that in part is because he sees little Anthony getting up and moving around a lot, like someone that's close to his size, rather than little Tone didn't have that? Mom and dad would get up and move around whenever they did. But
I think that definitely helps, because Anthony will, go up to Grayson and be like, hey, come to me. And then he'll just get up and just big smile and just start walking towards him. So that kind of enforces him to do it too. So I think that definitely helps. And like you said, just seeing, your brother walk, he'll get up and start kind of because he just started really, getting up on his 2 feet and just standing there and trying to just, find that center. Once he found that center, it was take a step and then he would fall. Then it would take 2 steps, fall. And then once he just got those first 2, then he just started going. And I'm like, oh, there he goes, So, and, now they're just all, he'll just run over to him and they'll just start, play fighting and everything. So now the fun is really beginning. So,
yeah, I mean, how long after little Anthony started kind of walking like Grayson is, did he start running around a lot? Was it more 6 months to a year before he was running around a lot? Or
yeah, I'd say after maybe a couple months, 6 to 12 months, then once he really got comfortable, then it's when he started picking up the pace of actually starting to jog.
Mm-hmm.
And then it went into a run and everything. So, right now it's to the point where you just have to watch where he's going. Then it gets into the point where, okay, he's definitely picking it up, and then he's going to, get into a walk jog, and then just start knowing how to really, run with it. And then, and again, I think the same thing. Once he starts seeing his brother, he's going to want to try to learn that too and just pick it up. So I think he'll, be a quick learner with it as well. So it's a little bit different now that he has somebody to look up to and see it. Then he's like, okay, I want to try that too. So it's interesting to, see on that fact where Anthony kind of had to learn it on his own, where Grayson kind of has somebody to look up to and, see the example and then be like, okay, I want to try that now. So
I can't wait for them to be talking to each other, like for Grayson to learn how to talk and then them have their
yeah.
own side conversations.
Oh yeah.
I know that's like the next big thing, right? Like,
Yeah, because he's, still babbling. He'll, do his like da and like ba, like, and just little babbling noises. So he's not really putting words together yet. But I think in year 2, that's when I think you're going to start seeing him form like a couple words together. So that like, I think that's when Anth was like really starting to put some words. It started trickling in within year 1, later in year 1, but then year 2 is when, the words started really combining and he started figuring out, okay, putting these words together and blah, blah, blah. So yeah, I think that started really shining in year 2, then 3, starting to do longer sentences, so.
yeah, so like by the holiday season, he'll probably start getting it. And again,
Yeah.
if we go with he walked quickly, I know talking is like not the same department, right? Like it's just a different kind of motors. Like it's not a motor skill
I
more
think
than
so.
a mental skill, right?
I think so. And I think it just depends on his surrounding with other kids, if they're picking up on it, and then he'll pick up. And again, I think it helps that he has a bigger brother, so he can, go off of him too. And uh, definitely this summer will be interesting because then you're going to have 2 walking kids, and then, Grayson being that much more independent than last summer. It'll be fun this summer dealing with them.
I think next summer is going to be like, I mean, they're going to be.
Have you ever wanted to start your podcast but didn't know where to start? The One Set Bros are here to talk to you about Zencastr. Zencastr is the ultimate base podcasting solution and now the all-in-one podcasting platform, making podcasting easy. They've sure made it easy for us to be able to record our podcast and our episodes every week for you guys. Once you've set up your account, you're simply one click away from recording a high-quality podcast with studio-quality sound and up to 4K video with your guests. My personal favorite feature is their multi-layer backups, which ensure our recordings are always in the highest quality, even during unstable web connections. And if you thought you needed multiple tools and services for your podcast, Zencastr's all-in-one podcasting platform allows you to create your podcast all in one place and distribute to Spotify, Apple, and other major destinations. Go to zencastr.com/pricing and use our code OneSetPod, and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. I want you to have the same easy experiences we do with all our podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story.
They're going to be.
Anthony will be
6, and they'll be
going
6 and
into
3,
6.
right?
Yeah, great. Yeah, Grayson will be going into like 6 and 3 territory. So yeah, that'll be interesting. Yeah.
They're gonna be moving around all over the place so quick. You'll be like, I can't keep up with these 2.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, definitely for sure. Because I just even now that like with them play fighting and everything, because they'll just like I think I've said before to you, like they'll just go in the pack and play, and now they're just gonna play fight and everything. And every once in a while you'll think that it's Anthony that is kind of being too rough, where you'll be seeing, and then you look over, it's Grayson on top of Anthony.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, it's not even just like because we'll think Anthony, be careful, but then it's Grayson actually on top of Anthony. I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah, I feel like little Anthony is going to get like considerably bigger in the next 2 years. Not that Grayson won't, but I feel like Grayson will still be like a toddler.
Yeah.
Ish. like still like not a baby, but not a 5-year-old. Like basically
Yeah.
where Little Anth was a year ago.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I think Little Anth is going to be like just like a big kid in first grade kind of thing. Like that's
Yeah. Uh, I still can't even,
like wrap your
fathom
brain around
that
that. Yeah.
later this year. But
Well, he's going
the
to
also the big
kindergarten.
thing is,
Yeah.
I think later this year, probably in the summertime, Grayson will be out of the crib, and then we're going to be putting him in the toddler bed.
Mm-hmm.
That will be interesting too, because then Anthony will have the big bed, Grayson will be in the toddler bed. So it'll be interesting if they eventually, later in those nights, kind of be like, oh, okay, I'm going to go in the bed and just sleep with Anth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that'll
So
be fun.
yeah, that'll be interesting. So I think that'll be something in the summertime, like maybe late summer, that might start happening. But he might even start transitioning out of the crib somewhere midsummer. Because we have the mattress all the way down on the crib. Because when we did it with Anthony, we started and put it on the top level. But then, once he gets enough where he can start to try to put his leg over, then that's when you start putting it down.
Yeah,
And
you
I
can't have
figured,
them falling out of the thing. Yeah.
yeah, so I figured this time when I put the crib up, I'm like, just put it all the way down, and so you don't have to worry about putting
Adjusting
down,
it after the fact.
adjusting it three different times. I'm like, just put it all the way down. You never have to adjust it. So, and he's to the point where he has his head over the top part, but he's not tall enough yet where he can get the leg up. He's able to lift the leg up, but he can't get it over.
Yeah.
But he's to the point where he can like go here and like try to lift his leg, but there's no way he's getting out right now unless he finds the power to push himself up, but he doesn't have that much power yet. But
I don't think you ain't got to worry about that for a while.
yeah, nothing right now. And I think, within that first year, he's definitely had a little bit of a growth spurt, but I think he will definitely be taking another growth spurt within these next couple months too. Because I remember Anthony definitely had his first big growth spurt within that first to second year.
Mm-hmm.
And then definitely within this last year, he did another big one. So it'll be interesting how Grayson will adjust to those two, whether, because I mean, Jen's not tall. I'm not like a statue tall, but I don't see them being, too much bigger.
I mean, you're taller than the Iverson statue, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, maybe a little above the eyes, but yeah. I mean, I'm taller. Me and my brother are a little taller than my dad. We're not like towering over him, but I would like to think,
Are you 6 foot?
I'm like
5'11".
5'11", 5'10", 5'11" on a good day.
Yeah, that's
I don't think I've ever reached like the 6 foot mark, but
yeah, that's me too.
enough where like I was able to be like, okay, 2-3 feet off, whatever.
Feet, yeah,
Yeah, inches. But you had a convention or a little convention conference this weekend in Maryland, right?
Yeah, so down in
How'd that
Baltimore.
go?
Last year was my first year attending a convention as a teacher. Like I went as a teacher. I did conventions. I would do a convention every year growing up through dance. And it was like one of my favorite parts of the entire year. It was just so neat taking from like big wig teachers that are in the industry. So inspiring. And then through my 20s, as I was pursuing a dance career whilst running a dance studio, I was still taking classes. I wasn't going to convention as a teacher. I was going as a student, as a dancer and training. So last year was my first year because the particular studio that I went with asked me to go and was taking faculty members to go as teachers. And I was like, yeah, sure. It'll be like different for me. So instead of dancing all weekend, I'm observing the classes and just retaining like how the teacher is instructing the class rather than
Gotcha.
I'm learning as a dancer or I'm learning as a teacher.
Right.
Um, so it was a lot of fun this go around, and the hip hop teacher I'd actually taken from out in LA back in
Oh,
2000
cool.
back in 2008, which was 17 years ago. It's just
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Crazy, right?
Ridiculous, like almost a half a lifetime ago, right? Um,
So I'm assuming they probably didn't remember
no,
you being like, so it's like one of those things, like, out of thousands of students they probably taught, like, how are they going to remember just one
yeah,
person?
yeah, and it was the only time I'm pretty sure I ever took from him. I didn't expect him to remember me, and especially I took from him in LA versus he's traveling to Maryland.
Yeah.
Like there's not a chance that he would remember me after one class.
Mm-hmm.
It was cool, and so the first class I took from him was in the teacher room, and it was me as a hip hop teacher and three other teachers that were like studio directors that were
Mm.
competition team directors that like their big shtick was jazz and contemporary and tap, and like
Gotcha.
they're just getting hip hop integrated and elevated at their studio, and they're asking questions about musicality and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. And I'm like, this class is for the rest of you. I'm just here for funsies, basically. um, but then I actually took the class as a dancer when he taught in the senior room, and
Nice.
it kicked my ass a little bit, but it was good.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. It wasn't um, the combination he taught was maybe 20 seconds long, super fast. Um,
Mm-hmm.
not my not my comfort zone,
Right.
stylistically speaking. So I was glad it was like challenging in that right. Um,
Yeah. Because you definitely get, like, every once in a while when you're, doing your own thing, you get stuck in your own type of,
style. Yeah,
comfort.
yeah.
And then when you're, around other people, you know, when you're collaborating with other people, that's why it's always fun to collaborate. But then you get so many other ideas. But then when you find somebody that's going to challenge you, that can kind of be like more of like a shivering moment, like, oh, like, hope I can do this. But then, you know, you remember, like, okay, I mean, I know how to do this, but then, like, you're so caught in your ways, and then, then you realize sometimes you can do more than what you actually have been doing. So
Hmm.
it's cool to kind of see that you were able to get out of that comfort zone and be able to do something you may not have thought, like, at first, like, oh, I mean, that I haven't been able to be out here to kind of do this type of thing. But then once you started going, you're like, oh, okay, cool. I'm actually more confident with it.
Yeah, it was mostly steps that like my body has done in some capacity before. It was just
Mhm.
um, like the music choice um, was like more of a rap song, which
Mm.
I don't gravitate towards that too much. But like the hip hop dance industry is a lot in that genre right now.
Yeah.
Um, so it was good because I was like, all right, I like it was good in the aspect of I need to take a class like this to make me feel like I am okay with the current times. I
Uh-huh.
could I wish I could take more classes. I wish I just could take more classes on the regular.
Right.
The schedule doesn't really allow for it. My work schedule doesn't because I'm teaching so much. But
Mm-hmm.
such is life when um, you know you merge from being a dancer and you're in the field of you do teach most of the week, most nights in the week.
Right.
You don't get to take class for yourself like that. Um, so yeah, it was fun. And then yesterday the um, was President's Day, so the schools were off. I had rehearsals. I went back to Maryland to my studio to wrap up my competition projects. Excuse me, sorry. um, so that was good because I rehearsed a couple of routines that really like, not that I didn't think they were going to be good, but they actually, the one I hadn't seen since I finished it in September, and the student practiced and is really owning it. I just had to like
Hmm.
help adjust a few things, and I was like, I can't wait to see this. I'm going to their first competition in a couple
Nice.
weeks, so I'm stoked for that. The one routine I wrapped up yesterday. One of the pieces that I'm more proud of in the last like 5 years. So I'm
That's awesome.
just on a high from that. Pretty excited, and um, I got a birthday coming up next week, so
Yeah, you do.
I've got some. I've been looking forward to this time, knowing that those projects were going to be completed and behind me. The weather is still cold, but warmer weather is coming soon.
Yeah.
So, um, some transformation times are impending, and
Mm,
I am excited to start those journeys. Things I've been waiting for basically now to be like, okay, that's going to be about the time where I want to pull the trigger on some resets here.
hmm.
So I've got a lot that I'm looking forward to for personal goal stuff. So let's get into what we want to talk about today.
Let's.
My one studio's recital theme is TV show theme songs. And I told you this a couple weeks ago about the TV shows that I picked for my routines. And 4 of my 5 routines stemmed from the 90s.
Yeah.
And you said to me, you're like, we should just do a whole episode on that. I was like, I would love to. We need a little bit of a break from all of the Eagles and sports talk and the wrestling
Yeah.
talk. We got WrestleMania season coming up. I mean, we're in WrestleMania season now, but it's kind of like chilled out for right now. I think it's
It's a good
gonna
little segue before we get into the bigger doses of WrestleMania.
mania.
Like you said, I mean, NFL is, off until, training camp in the summer. And, we're in the road to WrestleMania, but I feel after Elimination Chamber, it's really going to start getting dicey because that'll be like the official, like everything's going to be clicking. We're going to start seeing more of the storylines coming through.
All the matches are
So,
gonna start falling into place. Yeah, it's,
yeah. So we'll get more of an idea of what, each night is probably going to be looking like very soon. So I like the fact that we're going to break this one up, maybe, if not one whole episode here, if not like one or two,
mhm.
and just to kind of get away from the last couple episodes. Not that we didn't appreciate it, we loved it. We the fact that we were able to have the full all the way up into the Super Bowl for the Eagles. But this should be fun. I know we talked a little bit off air about what we wanted to talk about, how far we wanted to go with this, but if
But we
anything, we want you guys to be, a part of it too. So definitely, comment with what your favorite, 90s themed TV shows are. We're going to break down a couple that, we had thought about. I'm pretty sure we have a couple similar ones, a couple different ones. This is going to be fun though.
Yeah, I want, because I told you the granted the one routine in Jersey, their track, their their theme song that they're doing is Game of Thrones, which is certainly not 90s, right?
Right.
So since I told you the other 4 that are from the 90s, I wanted you to actually start with like some of the show theme songs that like right off the top of your head, things that like when you thought about this, um,
Yeah.
what you wanted to talk about, and let you kind of help us jump into it. And
Yeah, I'll go right down, the first like 2, and then we can kind of break off from there.
sure.
When you think of '90s, and we were talking a little bit at length about the fact that, you know, in today's TV shows, you know, I think they put more forth into the drama aspect of the shows, where the meaning of a theme song has kind of lost its originality. Where
That
the
that right there was kind of why we wanted to do this, because you were like, they don't
yeah,
really do that anymore. Like
you know, you
the
don't
intro
really have
theme
a
isn't
good show
important like
that's
that.
like, oh, it like you may not even know the show, but you just know it from the actual theme song and the song itself. So that's why I think the '90s were a good era of uh, shows that were the shows were good, they were great, but the theme song and like the song of that show just made you be like instant nostalgia. So I think, I mean, number one, and this doesn't even have to be like a number one. I'm not even saying it's number one on my list, but the first one that I just put down on my phone was All That. You know, I think that's a typical big TV show theme song that, you know, if you were born in the '90s and you lived throughout that, you know, original OG, you know, cast, All That was an amazing show.
Yeah, I think when I think of All That, I think that it was such a great show in that it had cultural diversity in it, and
Yeah,
that wasn't really something that you saw a lot across a lot of shows in the '90s. It was
right. It was either A
this,
or B, not
this,
really mixed that
yeah,
much.
exactly, and
Because you had
it,
like your, and not to be, you know, politically or racially about these things, like you had your white shows, you had your black shows, you had your this and your that. Not too many like shows had a mixture of cultural things too much. So I think, you know, you said All That kind of put that type of thing on the map of saying, like, you know, you can have, you know, diversity in your shows and still have something that was watchable.
yeah, I think Saturday Night Live, when you go back to like because they just had their 50th anniversary. I didn't see any of it because I
Yeah,
was away, but
I didn't get to either, but I definitely got to go back and see it.
yeah, I mean, I think you and I probably both really got into SNL like when The Rock hosted, right? Um,
Yeah, I
I
would
did,
say yeah. That definitely brought me into the thing of SNL. I mean,
yeah.
yeah, because I really don't think I watched SNL before that, but yeah,
I
I mean,
mean,
I think All That was like almost like the SNL for kids because you like
yep.
you. I mean, you had like the Mad TVs, you had In Living Color, which I did watch in the '90s, and. You know, I'll say that after, but I think that was a pretty good theme song too. So I'll save that. I just thought of that, adding that to the list. We'll talk about that a little later. But you know, yeah, I mean, All That being like a sketch comedy show for kids,
Yep.
you know, is just something that, you know, for that demographic, because you had SNL was not really like a kid show, it was more, you know, for
No,
the adults.
it was late
So
night on Saturdays, like
exactly,
us
Saturday Night Live
kids.
it started like 11:30. Most kids were, you know, our age at that point. What we were like, you know, 6, 7, 8 years old. We weren't staying up until 11:30 at night.
No.
So at least I know I wasn't. So
Mm-mm. No, I think, like I said, like we tuned into SNL because The Rock was on it, right? So
yeah,
we saw that and we were like, "What is?" We were like, "This is All That, but like adults." Right?
right.
So our point exactly, like All That really was like sketch comedy show with skits laid out for kids, right?
Yeah.
And the cultural diversity in that show, like I was saying, kudos to Nickelodeon for helping kind of like put that on the map for kids, especially. Um, I loved All That. It is one of my recital songs. Just so fun
Hmm.
when I play it back, and I'm like, all right, these kids that I'm teaching now, 30 years, 25, 30 years removed from the 90s,
Right.
they're not going to know what All That is.
Hmm.
But the song is bouncy and it's so fun.
Right.
So
Like you just, once you hear like the opening part of it, you just know, oh, okay, I don't even care what episode it is, I'm watching it, you
yeah,
know?
it sucked me right back to being a kid, man. Like
Hmm.
it's going to be really
Absolutely.
fun to work with. Um, love that show. I mean, I'm sure we'll talk Keenan and Kel a little bit, but they were probably my favorites on the show. Um, Lori Beth Johnson, I think it was Lori Beth Johnson, who did
Yeah,
the library skit, right?
Library Girl. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I know Amanda Bynes was later on, and then she broke out and had her own show, and then
Mm-hmm. And who was it?
Danny Tamborelli.
Danny Tamborelli. Shout out because we did it earlier, like a season or two.
Mm-hmm. I think that
uh,
name just randomly popped in my head. Um, just one of those things that you're like, I don't
Trying to
even know.
remember what that girl's name is. Oh yeah, Katrina Johnson. She
Yep.
was part of all that, so she was one of the younger cast members at the time, and I don't think she was one of the OGs, but she was like probably one of the second like OGs of the family.
Mm.
She was that much. Because I think it was Amanda Bynes then Katrina, but
Yeah, I think Katrina came after Amanda Bynes.
yeah, because I mean, if you watch that whole Nickelodeon special with that whole documentary on the whole Nickelodeon scandals and stuff,
I
they
didn't
were
see any
talking
of
about
that.
the whole. You did or you didn't?
I did not. I heard
Yeah,
about
so
it, like I'm aware of it, but I didn't.
right. Yeah, so I got to see, I won't go into it much, but they were talking about the whole Amanda Bynes thing and how, they were doing all this, and then Katrina came in, and then, they kind of moved forward into her, and then they took the spotlight off of Amanda and all this and everything. But, if you guys want to watch it, I think it's somewhere online at this point. But, you know, Katrina had her special thing in comedy, where Amanda had, a special thing with her type of comedy, but it was almost like you're pushing out the old and bringing in the new.
Mm-hmm.
And, but, the whole show in general, was great. And I know, I think what was in the last like 3 or 4 years, they tried to bring it back, but it just didn't work out. I don't think they were able to, you know,
Rehash
do the
it.
flame of the whole thing.
Yeah.
I don't think it really worked out with the cast they had, but just the original, Keenan and Danny Tamborelli, Lori, all those original members is just like something that again that was like once in a lifetime, won't happen again.
I think
But
Josh Server is his name, who was Detective Dan. He was one of the OGs.
that's right. Yeah, and I think we talked about like Repairman and all those guys before. Keenan doing the French dude in the tub,
Pierre Escargot.
Pierre
Yeah.
Escargot.
Yeah. Yeah.
So good.
So good, dude.
But moving on, I'll tell you one more, and then we'll get to another one that popped up in my head was Family Manners.
Yep.
Again, another great, once you just hear those first like couple notes,
The piano,
instant
dude.
nostalgia. Yeah, the piano notes to that beginning is just like instant nostalgia. And again, one of those things, like I don't care what episode it is, I'm sitting down to watch it.
Yeah. That was again one of the songs that I picked for my Jersey recital pieces.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much soul in that song, man. I mean, I can't not get good vibes and feelings
Right.
when I hear that track, dude.
And I think that's with any, good like 90s theme song. It just made you feel something.
Mm-hmm.
And, that was something that's like, it was upbeat. It just made you feel good. And, even if you were having a crappy day, you heard that, you're like, okay, whatever happened today, I don't care. I'm sitting down and watching this because it's going to make me feel better.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Jaleel White being Steve Urkel.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to me, there was no one else like him.
I don't think you could have had anybody else play that character.
There was no other character on TV that really made me feel the way that Steve Urkel made me feel, like just such a goofy nerd bomb character.
And he related to so many people. He was relatable to so many. Like, that nerdy character, but he had people that cared about him, but and also had that type of personality that can be relatable to so many people.
Well, you take like the Winslow family and like their dynamic just seemed very like, okay, this is like a typical home style dynamic that's happening right
Typical middle
here.
class family type thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Steve Urkel enters the room and just is so vibrant and so
Yeah.
funny. And his dynamic with Carl his
Yeah.
is hysterical. And
Hey,
then
Carl.
yeah. And Carl just being miserable. I mean, the dude's a cop.
Right.
They're in Chicago. Like, you know that dude is just putting his life on the line every day, and he's got to come home, and Steve Urkel is just causing havoc in his
Ruckus.
house. Like, yeah. It's so good. And then like the whole the love story with Laura and then
yeah.
And then when he made the transition over to Stefan, I was like, what are we doing here?
Right. And then it was just like, oh, now she was attracted to Stefan. And he's like, oh, well, and that whole ordeal of that episode. But I think that was something that, you know, again, something to get like a change to it, because you can only have that character do so much.
Yeah, they did so many
it was cool
years
that he was able to have.
They were able to make an adjustment to bring new life to the show and switch it up. I thought it was good. I'm not saying when I'm like, what are they doing here? I was just like, as a kid, I was like, yeah, but I love Steve Urkel, man. Like, he's just hilarious.
Absolutely. And who was the girl's name?
Myra.
She was friends with Laura.
It was Myra.
What was Myra? Yeah, she had a crush on Steve, which Steve was always like kind of like, you know, neglecting her the same way that Laura would neglect Steve. So it was almost like the opposite direction.
He switched over to Stefan, and then Stefan and Laura were a thing for a second, but then I think Stefan winds up with Myra or something like that.
Right, something like that. Yeah.
Dude, do you remember Steve Urkel's car, like that little like clown car, like bubble thing that he had?
I vaguely remember.
It was about the size of those little tiny red toy cars that we used to have when we were like super little, like those old Fisher Price cars. It was small. It looked like a little spaceship car. So funny. I love that show, dude.
What are some that were on your list? There are two that pop up out of your list.
All right. My other 90, like kind of in that sitcom era or category, I'd say. You got Step by Step and Full House. I mean, the two of them for me were, I think, I feel like Step by Step was more, as far as my older sisters went, they were more into that. There was just a lot more, I think, dynamic with, I think there were like 3 sons and 3, not that it was like the Brady Bunch, but
right.
I feel like with Full House, it was just the 3 daughters kind of thing. So it was kind of limiting in that aspect, right?
Yeah.
It was the 3 daughters, but then you had the single dad, and then you had the uncle and the best friend, Joey, Uncle Jesse, that is.
Right.
But I feel those theme songs, like, again, you could hear the first 2 seconds and think of the whole song and think of the whole show, and it could put you right back into your childhood, right?
Yeah, 100%. Full House was my next one, and I had just thought of Step by Step before we started. So, you know, TGIF, the whole band of that Friday night. I mean, if you were not watching TGIF almost every Friday, where were you? You know, you had, and there are there's 1 or 2 other shows that were from that TGIF, you know, Friday night series, one being Boy Meets World, which is on my list. Boy Meets World has to be, you know, probably, if you're thinking 90s, just like all that, Boy Meets World is probably got to be in your top 5, like 90s, you know, TV shows.
It's funny that you mention that because it's not on my list, but that is a show that I watched a lot, but I don't remember the show. I don't remember the show for the theme song specifically.
Right. Now, the thing is, the theme song, which was nice. Now, this is something that, you know, outside of like all that, where the song kind of stayed the same, but then like the video would change as the characters would change, where Boy Meets World, the song adapted to as the years went on.
Mm-hmm.
So you like if you watch it as it first started. Now I wouldn't say that was probably the best version. So I'd say that's why it's probably not like as a TV show song, probably not like higher up in my list, I would say.
No, I think
But
it was just like,
as a feel, the show in general is great.
yeah, in
I
that
would say
first,
probably by like the mid seasons when they started getting into their older ages.
when they were like
Uh,
cooler and they were like, all right, we got to switch the song up, and then they
yeah,
brought in the vocals with the "When It's Boy Meets
boy me,
World."
yeah.
Yeah,
That I think when it hit that theme song, that's when it was like, oh, that's the nostalgia song that hits everybody.
well,
So,
I,
but I liked how it just changed throughout the series to fit the characters and as they aged to, fit the scene and fit the vibe of the show. But yeah, the whole that part of the theme song, that's the one that you always think of. I would, at least on my end, that's the one I always go to.
yeah, because I can vaguely remember the tune of the intro theme from like the earlier seasons where it was just like, I don't think there were even vocals or lyrics.
They
I think
didn't
it
even
was just
have like
like,
any vocals to it. It was just an instrumental.
it was just a tune, right?
Yep, just a very short, you know, little instrumental tune, just introducing the characters. Mr. Feeney, Corey, Sean,
And the
and
parents.
again, they changed it almost every episode because they had more people being involved. Because I don't think Topanga really uh, debuted until episode 3 or 4 of that first season.
Mm-hmm.
So she didn't really even get into the credits until mid-season. So, they just kept adding people into that intro, but it was just a little instrumental. And then I don't think they really got to a vocal maybe right before like that traditional one, but the one that we were just talking about, the Boy Meets World, intro was when it was really like, okay, that's the one. That's the one that hits.
Well, I think it's probably got to do with like, I think Corey was like a preteen when the show first came out. Like he wasn't in elementary school, but I think he was like sixth grade, seventh
I
grade.
would say like, yeah, like middle schoolish.
Yeah, and then
It wasn't elementary. I would say definitely middle school.
I think it was like, I think the show really took off because, again, relatable. I mean, this preteen going through adolescence and then going to high school,
Yeah.
and like I think that they got a lot of the storylines right, like with
Yep.
with going through high school and then graduating high school, and then it was like they were in college, and then Corey and
Yep.
Topanga get married. Like
Yeah.
I feel like
Because
they
it's like
hit.
you were just growing up with them as that show kept going. Because like you said, it was just hitting every step of your like life at that point.
Yep.
And that I think that's what just made it such a good show, because it was I think I saw the documentary or reading a documentary about it saying like there was never a show at that time that took it from the kids' perspective. It was always about the adults looking down on the kids, but they wanted to switch it up and take it from the kids' perspective. So it was always focused on like Corey and all the younger kids. So that's what really hit. And then it just started hitting that age group of kids. And it just hit so many things of what that age demographic was going through at the time. So
Yeah.
I think they just it's like one of those things that come along at the right time, right cast members doing it. And again, like I'll always tune into Boy Meets World no matter what season. The I would say the first season or two in their younger years, it's nice, but once they start getting into their you know further high school and college years, that's when it's like probably the best work they've
I
had.
think the show really took off. Yeah, they're.
Especially Eric's character, because Eric's character definitely had a big developmental change once he
Mhm.
got like because he was very sentimental, and just being that like, oh, I'm the cute older brother trying to get girls and everything, but then he changed into this like very like um I don't seem as smart as I am, but I try to like he played the part so well, and just like how we're saying, like there's nobody else that could have played that character like uh the character of Eric.
Yeah, I can't remember his name off the top of my head.
I think it's William. I forget, but yeah, nobody could have played that character like he did. And I think it was to the point where Eric started being almost my favorite character outside of Corey. Because you always were wondering what is Eric going to do, because there was always something that Eric was going to do that was going to make you laugh. Like plays with squirrels. That was like the funniest bit that he has ever done. It was so funny.
So I think he was like the bully big brother character at first, right? And then
just playing that typical, I have a younger brother, but I'm in high school. I don't want to be seen around my brother, blah, blah, blah.
Yep. And
then as they got older, it's like, okay, you start forming that relationship, but then, you again hitting those big like topics of like family and dealing with siblings and how those things are going, because it was from the kids' perspective rather than the parents looking down on the kids.
Will Friedel's his name. I just happened to look that
there
up.
you go.
He grew his hair long, and then there's the episode where he takes the wig off and he's got the short hair, and like all the I guess if they recorded it in a live studio audience, the girls are all just going wild. I'm like, oh, there's Eric, the heartthrob, right?
Yeah, right, yeah. Right.
Mm-hmm. So Ben Savage being Corey Matthews' older brother, was the lead, was Kevin Arnold. The Wonder Years came out in 88. Mm-hmm. Came out in 1988. So that we're not going to talk about that one. It doesn't qualify for.
Does not qualify for this, but yeah. But just to say, I never got into that show, Wonder Years.
I did a little bit.
I may have seen an episode or two, but it didn't hit me to the point where I'm like, oh, I didn't really get into that show.
Show came out in 88. I feel like we were a little young for the show.
Yeah,
like, I think it was a little before.
That's probably why.
Yep.
Trying to look at more on my list here.
Yeah, so I just did Step by Step and Full House.
So
I mean, there's like, if you want to jump into the cartoon category, there's the cartoons.
All right, cool.
I mean, I don't have Hey Arnold on my list, but it's definitely worth noting. Like the Hey Arnold theme was so fun.
Hey Arnold's good.
I mean, it came out 97 and trickled into like 04, so you could say it's majority early 2000s. But I think the theme song when it first came out definitely had like a jazzy feel, which I really liked. Definitely a little different. It's worth noting Rugrats and Doug, man. I have Doug written down. I didn't even write Rugrats.
Yeah,
that was my more.
I didn't even think about all those, like Doug and Rugrats, and those were. I mean, Rugrats even more than Doug,
mm-hmm.
But yeah.
I mean,
I had on my list, and it is just making our list. It debuted in May of, and I just looked at this, May of '99. It was SpongeBob SquarePants.
Okay, that is like
so
right on the cusp of the end of the '90s.
It's just making the cutoff line.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean the theme song to that again is something like you hear it and you're like, okay, awesome. Yeah. So, but yeah, Rugrats was definitely like the show.
Early 90s.
And Doug, I love Doug. Yeah. That was great. And I'll tell you another one. This isn't much cartoon wise, but going back into, the Nickelodeon era of game shows, because I think Nickelodeon did the game show thing so well with like, now this isn't the one that I'm talking about, but like giving examples like Legends of the Hidden Temple and all those. That's on your list?
On my list.
And I just thought of that, but here's another one, and this might be on your list too. Guts.
I don't have Guts on my list. I kind of threw Legends of the Hidden Temple on the list because it's the one intro theme that kind of really stood out for me. Like I wanted to tune into the beginning of the show to hear the intro theme before seeing the rest of the show, kind of thing.
Right.
And then they would play the show transitioning in and out of commercials. Just a fun theme, man.
Yeah.
I didn't have any other like game shows on here.
Yeah. And just thinking of Legends of the Hidden Temple before Guts, but I would definitely agree with you that Legends of the Hidden Temple's theme song is definitely better than Guts, but I felt I wanted to be on Guts more than Legends of the Hidden Temple just because of the fact that they had so many cool games on there. So
Mm-hmm.
I feel the theme song for Guts was okay, but actually watching the show was
Was more
better
fun.
than
Yeah.
waiting for the theme song. It was more fun than
Yeah.
catching the theme song. It's almost like you can deal with if you didn't catch the beginning of the song, but just if you were like catching the tail end, like if they were, getting at the end of like the aggro crag, you're like, oh man, I missed the whole episode.
Mm-hmm.
So, but like Legends of the Hidden Temple, it's like, okay, if I'm catching the end of Legends of the Hidden Temple and there's another one on,
You're
I'm gonna
hanging
watch
around just to
I'm
catch
hanging
the
around to
intro.
just catch the intro again.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. I'm right there with you on that one.
So that explains that for sure.
Gotta go with Saved by the Bell, man.
That was not on my list, but that's another one that I didn't get into too much.
Yeah, I didn't either. But you hear that song?
It's not a show that I got into, but I know the song rings 90s to a T.
Yeah, yeah. You hear that and you're like, there's no way this show came out in any other decade. It just screams 90s.
Right.
That's why I had to throw it on here.
Yeah.
I
mean, I'm surprised we haven't talked about this yet. But again, thinking 90s theme songs, you cannot have this not be in our list. Fresh Prince.
Yeah. I didn't put it on my list almost because it was like a shoe-in that you were going to have it on yours kind of thing. Like I knew there's no way we were going to get through this episode and that wouldn't be talked about. But that again,
yeah. I mean, come on. I mean the whole song, just like you said, when it first comes on, and just all the way because everybody knows. I think that's the one song that everybody knows front to back that is just like you want to recite every single word front to back for a theme song.
And I think it really helped make Philly like more popular to like outside cities in the country, right? They're like, oh, this is that show where the kid is from Philadelphia and he's growing up in Bel Air in California,
mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
I have Sister on my list just because Sister.
I actually had Salute Your Shorts on my list.
I didn't get into that show.
I mean, it wasn't my favorite, but I would watch it.
I think the camp counselor annoyed the shit out of me, and I was like, I'm not watching this show just because of that guy.
He was annoying, but I would stick around and watch it. Like again, it was one of those shows that if it was on, I would watch it. But if I had to like go and do something and I missed it, I wasn't going to be too mad about it. It was like one of the shows that was cool. That like, okay, if it's on, it's at least something I'll watch.
The only guy that kept me on that show, if I watched it for 5 minutes, was Donkey Lips.
Donkey Lips.
Yeah, come on.
You know.
I have the Magic School Bus on here only because I feel like that song screams 90s.
Right.
I didn't watch too much of the show. It was more educational, and I was not about learning outside of school when I was a kid.
Right.
Let me see here. There's three. Actually, there's a third one in this category that I don't have on the list because I don't really remember the intro theme, but the other two are worth noting, and it's Goosebumps and X-Files.
X-Files was cool.
I mean, X-Files.
I didn't really watch too much of X-Files.
I didn't
but
either.
Goosebumps I did.
I didn't. I think I might have watched X-Files once ever, but the intro theme, is memorable.
Definitely.
So I
Definitely.
just definitely had to throw that on there for that. Another
I as
another
an
show I didn't watch, but memorable intro, Baywatch. Anyone?
Yeah,
Anyone?
right. I mean, come on now. I mean,
Enough
like I said,
said.
I didn't watch it until later, until we realized, but until we realized the greatness of it until later on.
Yeah, that
But
that would be my honorable mention. It doesn't have to be on the
I'm
list.
gonna say like an honorable mention for me. Now this is one that's like not like upbeat or anything, but again, it's something that's like, uh, you know, Are You Afraid of the Dark?
So that's the one on my list in the similar category of like scary.
Right.
I didn't really watch it that much. Um,
I would definitely watch it on like the TGIF, or if it came on like certain times. Like I was definitely tuning into the new episodes, and there were a couple ones that were pretty scary, and then ones that were like, okay, this is pretty corny. But then there was ones that were like really, really, like, okay, that definitely gave me the creeps.
yeah. Um, I mean, I have my brother and me on here just cause like we freaking love that show.
I was going to put that on there too, in the same aspect that you said. I would hope that you put it on there.
Yeah, like for you with Fresh Prince, you probably thought I was going to put my brother and me on here just like
Right, because
by
I thought of My
default,
Brother
right?
and Me, but I'm like, it's a good theme song, but unfortunately, it didn't get too much popularity.
Yeah, that's
But it's like one of those like, uh, ones that like if you were one of the few that really enjoyed it and remembered it, you were like a very small percentage of people that were like a dedicated audience of that.
yeah.
What else is on?
I only have two left because I kind of coupled a few of them together.
I think I've gone through mine, but there was one more that I was thinking of, but maybe it'll come back to my head.
I don't know. I don't know which one of these that I want to say first because the one show um, is more iconic, and I just want to double check. Damn it! This show that I was like, oh, this intro theme is so good, and the show came out in 1988. I didn't realize it started that early, so I'll just say it now. And we can say it's not supposed to be on the list for the 90s, but it had 10 seasons and the majority of its show lived throughout the 90s. So I feel like that's fair.
Gotcha.
And I feel like the show gained its popularity not in 88 or 89. And that's Roseanne.
Hmm.
The Roseanne intro theme also went through so
Yeah.
many variations, and they did so many
Yes.
different variations of the intro video with them aging.
Yes. It was perfect.
It's and it again, so much soul in that song, man. It's so good.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. We definitely watched a lot of Roseanne in our house
yeah,
at the time.
I didn't when I was younger, but I did more so when I got older, and I feel like it's because there were more like real world, real life problems and like conflicts involved in the show that like being younger, I was like, all right, these people are just complaining about shit all the time. Right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
But then you get older and you're like, oh yeah, no, this is kind of like
Like, I get it now.
it's like it's relatable, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. My last one that I have on the list, and again, it doesn't necessarily scream 90s, but it came out in 1990 and it's one of the biggest TV shows of all time, and that's Law and Order.
Mm.
I mean, that theme, and it's almost not fair because the show is still going on now.
It's still going
Yeah.
till this day. Yeah.
But the show
Yeah.
the show got big throughout the 90s and then has
Right.
been big since.
I mean, the gong gong is like, you know what's about to come.
Again, I was in New York when I was 13. I think it was like 2000. The year was 2000, and I was staying with my dance teachers, um, which sounds weird to say now, but was totally an all right thing back then. Um, but my one studio director, the owner of the studio, I was getting ready for bed in my own bed. By the way, they slept in the other bed in the hotel room. Let's not make it weird or anything. Um, but they put Law and Order on the TV, and I was like, of course they're watching some old people shit here.
Right. Yeah. It was definitely not something like a kid would be, but then, like you said, it's something later on you got into, and you're like, oh, this actually started in the '90s, but obviously didn't gain a lot of its popularity until later on.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I think the later 2000s, when I was in my early 20s, I actually watched the show quite a bit, um,
hmm
and was like, oh, this show is good. It's interesting,
hmm
and it's like, yes, it's a TV show, but like it's some of this is very much real life events. Like that's how the world is. Kind of scary, but yeah, I can't believe Mariska Hargitay is just still going, like just still, and Stabler's back on. I'm talking SVU
it's
specifically,
it's
but
cool. Yeah,
yeah,
that Stabler's back in there. That he's
yeah,
at least having some type of like storyline, and they have like the storyline within Law and Order, and then his side show as well, and they kind of link them all together, which is
hmm
pretty cool.
yeah,
But so I just thought of two because I had to look up a couple because I knew there was a couple others I was missing, and here's two. One is something that we had to have talked about because we love these things so much, and there's another one that I didn't really watch too much, but when it came up, I'm like, this is a good '90s one too. I'll quickly mention the one that I didn't watch as much, but it's like one of the ones that screams '90s. The show's Hanging with Mr. Cooper.
yep, yep. That's a good one.
That was a cool intro. And the one that, if we don't have any more, we can end on this. Uh, you know, this is probably has to probably be one of the biggest TV shows of the '90s. The Power Rangers.
Yeah, I'm
The Power
pissed.
Rangers theme. You know,
I'm pissed.
yeah.
I'm pissed.
I can't believe when I saw it. I'm like, how did we not remember
How
that?
do we
You know,
miss?
it's just like it was like your first taste into like epic guitar and metal music.
Yeah, and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles theme. Like, how could we miss those two?
Yeah.
Come on, man.
But I have to definitely check that. I'm not sure if it started in the 80s or maybe it was maybe it was 1990 though.
You
I'll have to
talking?
double check because the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles like TV show.
I'm pretty sure it was the '90s, man. I don't think
I'm
it.
looking at debut. And that's what I thought. So it debuted in '87,
Oh, what?
and the
Okay,
second version debuted in 2003, which I don't remember that. But the first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles animated TV series debuted in 1987
that is crazy to me. But at the same time, it makes sense. I guess when like thinking about it, I
because the
w-
movie didn't come out until 1990.
okay, yeah, that makes sense.
So
Because
it makes sense that because they base it off a lot of the comics and that animated series. So it makes sense that the movie didn't come out until 1990 when they had 3 years of the TV series coming out because the whole thing was the fact that kids were expecting something from the animated series, but the first movie was so violent that a lot of parents were complaining how you know you know dark it was, but it probably has to be the best Ninja Turtles movie we've ever had. And
Yeah, I
And
love this.
I still like the second one.
I love the second one better than the first one.
Regardless of what people think of saying, like, well, they didn't really get to use their weapons too much, and they kind of made more of a comedic portion of it more than making it more violent. I still think it was awesome. And just to say, I showed Little Tone the intro to the second Ninja Turtles movie the other night, and
With
he
Shredder?
loved it. He has not stopped like talking about like, and I showed him the final battle with the Turtles and Shredder from the first one, and every time he comes up to me now, like the Shredder's like, now you face the Shredder, and then Donnie's like, the Shredder, and every time Anth comes up to me now, he's like, the Shredder.
Yes.
And I'm like, maybe it's another word for saying coleslaw.
And you're like, I'm gonna show this kid these two movies, and he's gonna love them, and I'm gonna love life even more because my son is awesome. Like,
we watched like a very quick version of the first movie, which was on YouTube, and it had like 36 videos. Like you kind of watch them all in one time,
yep.
and it cut out a lot of the parts of the movie. But I'm like, I wasn't going to pay for it at the moment, but he was watching it here and there. So I'm like, all right. So he watched it, but I'll probably wait to show him the second one because I know like when it gets to like probably Tokar and Razor, I don't want to just kill his like things. I'm not sure if that's going to scare the hell out of him.
Oh yeah. Yep.
So
Maybe
I was
wait.
thinking up till that point, I'm like that the movie will be great, but once it gets to like Tokar and Razor, that might get a little bit too scary for him. So I'm like, I'll wait, and but I'm like, I know if I just show him like the action scenes from the Turtles, he's gonna love it, and he loved it.
Yeah.
So at least for now, I can just show him the action scenes of the stuff. But yeah, I mean, Ninja Turtles, Power Rangers, I remember being in elementary school, and we had like a very nostalgia kid thing. Like we were trying to like act like we were Power Rangers, and we had this whole Power Rangers kids group, and we would act like we were talking on our walkie things and everything. And so again, it was like Power Rangers mania back then, but like that original theme song caps anything.
Yeah, I went from like Barney and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from like 3 to 6, and then Power Rangers from 7 on.
Because Power Rangers, like, it was on like right when you got home from school. Like you were rushing home to school to watch that next episode.
Yeah, I think it came on.
It was like 3 o'clock or something. I felt like 3:30,
3:30, 4 o'clock, something like that.
So like you were like rushing home to work from work, rushing home from school,
yes,
and getting off the bus to get like right at home, so you can hopefully get something to eat, start some type of homework, and then turn TV on to watch Power Rangers.
Also worth noting the original Monday Night Raw theme, but there are so many different versions of the Raw intro that like
there have been throughout the 90s. There's so many different ones, but I don't even know how we missed that either. And again, there's going to be ones that we're going to be thinking about after we record this, but just like we said in the beginning, if you guys are watching this and you have one that we didn't mention, leave it in the comments below, and maybe we'll continue this next week. Maybe we'll see some ones that we, saw. We have to give our, little comments on them. But, I think we hit a decent amount from what we know of that we just came off the top of our heads. Again, if there's anything else you guys have, leave it in the comments. Share this out to some people. And, this is a fun one to kind of just break up out of the, sports talk. And, once we get into wrestling, all our wrestling things are going to be coming. So this was fun to kind of just break out and just kind of give something new for everybody.
Yeah. And I mean, I will say the fallout from the Royal Rumble last year was definitely way more massive than the fallout from the Rumble this year. So right now the build feels very meh. I think I said that to you and Matt. I said that to you and Matt either earlier today or last night or something like that. But I'm hoping that after the chamber that things kick into high gear.
I think they will. Because I think, we have Cena, we have Seth, we have Punk, and, I think something's going to be coming out of this Chamber match that's really going to spark up the rest of these next couple months.
It's worth noting as well that the Rumble was 2 weeks ago, and WrestleMania is 2 weeks later this year compared to last year. So maybe I just need to slow my roll for a second, right? And thanks. Thank you. This was fun. I mean,
this was fun. Yeah,
just
something a little different, but always a great time. And again, this left a lot of nostalgia for both of us to kind of reminisce on these things.
I love it. Thank you all for tuning in. And anything else before we wrap this one up?
Not much, but guys, just make sure you guys are subscribing. Hit us up on Patreon. Hit us up on our email, oncesaid.pod@gmail.com. Like us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Subscribe on YouTube, and go to our merch site, buy some merch, and if not, just share the episodes, share them with a friend, and let them know that we are uploading every Friday with new, brand new episodes for you guys. So thank you all for joining in again. This has been One Set. We'll see y'all next week.
All the love, y'all. Peace.